The first thing that bothered me was the voicemail, because my dad doesn't leave voicemails. Ever. If he misses your call, he just calls again 10 seconds later like a normal person. But at 2:14 in the morning, my phone buzzed with a voicemail notification that was already 2 minutes long, and when I played it, all I heard was breathing and this weird clicking sound, like somebody tapping glass with their fingernail. Then my dad whispered, really calmly, "Don't come upstairs." That was it. No explanation. Nothing after that except a loud scraping noise and the line cutting out. I just sat there in bed staring at the screen, because the thing is, my dad had died 3 years earlier, and before anybody rolls their eyes, trust me, I know how that sounds. I don't believe in ghosts. I still don't. There are explanations for things. Phones glitch, numbers get spoofed, people make mistakes. But I'll tell you exactly what happened because I still can't explain how all the pieces fit together. Back then I was living alone in my dad's old house outside Bloomington after my divorce. Cheap mortgage, too much space, bad memories. The upstairs had basically become storage because I hated going up there at night. Not because I thought it was haunted or anything dramatic, it just felt wrong after he died there. He had a stroke in the upstairs bathroom. I found him myself. So yeah, psychologically, the upstairs messed with me a little. That's normal. Anyway, after the voicemail I called the number back immediately. Straight to disconnected tone. Not voicemail. Not ringing. Just that dead electronic buzz. I checked the caller ID 3 times because I honestly thought maybe I was half asleep and imagining the contact name. But no, it was his old number saved under Dad. The same number disconnected years ago. I barely slept after that. Around maybe 5 a.m., I finally got up to make coffee, and that's when I noticed the attic hatch was open. Not wide open, just hanging down a few inches. Enough to notice. I stopped immediately because I knew for a fact it had been shut. I hadn't opened that hatch in over a year. I remember just standing there holding my coffee mug thinking somebody had broken in. That was the first rational thought. Somebody's in the attic. I grabbed the fireplace poker and honestly I almost called the police right there. But then I heard movement above me. Not footsteps exactly, more like weight shifting slowly. Wood creaking, then silence. I yelled up there, nothing. I pulled the hatch fully down and the ladder unfolded. The attic smelled weird, damp insulation and something metallic underneath it. I climbed maybe halfway before I noticed my dad's old recliner sitting up there facing the ladder. That chair had been downstairs in the den. I'm absolutely certain of that. I'd sat in it watching football 2 nights before. But there it was upstairs in the act, positioned directly toward me, like somebody had dragged it there specifically. I remember getting angry more than scared, because suddenly this felt like a prank. Maybe my cousin had a spare key. Maybe somebody was messing with me because they knew I was struggling after the divorce. I climbed the rest of the way up. Nobody there. Nobody there except for these clean streaks across the floorboards where something heavy had been dragged recently. The chair, maybe other stuff too. Then my phone buzzed in my pocket and I nearly fell backward. It was a text from an unknown number that just said, "You came upstairs." That's the moment where my stomach really dropped because I hadn't told anyone about the voicemail. Nobody knew I was awake. Nobody even should have known I was in the attic. I texted back immediately asking who it was. No response. The number disappeared after a few seconds. Literally vanished from my messages like it had never been there. I know how insane that sounds. I took screenshots, but later they were just black images with timestamps. I still have them somewhere. So now I'm properly freaked out, right? I searched the attic completely. No person, no signs of entry. One tiny window on the far side still latched from the inside. I came back down and locked every door in the house. Then I noticed the thermostat read 61 degrees, even though I kept it set to 70. I figured maybe the power flickered overnight. But when I checked the hallway camera footage from my Ring cam, there was a gap from 2:11 a.m. until 2:18. Just 7 solid minutes missing. Not corrupted, not frozen, completely absent, like those minutes never recorded. And at 2:19, the attic hatch was suddenly open. In the footage, even though it had been closed before the gap. I watched it over and over. There was no footage of it opening. It just skipped ahead. Again, I know there are technical explanations for this stuff. Cameras fail, apps glitch, but things kept stacking on top of each other in ways that stopped feeling random. Around noon, I called my friend Marcus because he installs security systems. He came over after work and honestly laughed at the whole thing at first. He thought somebody cloned the number and was messing with me. Fair enough. But then he checked the attic ladder and asked me why there was mud on the top rung. Fresh mud. We had rain the night before. Neither of us had noticed it earlier. The weird part was the mud only appeared on the top 3 rungs, not the lower ones. Like somebody stepped onto the ladder from above, not climbed up from below. Marcus stopped joking after that. He searched outside and found tire tracks in the wet grass near the tree line behind the house. Deep ones. Truck tires maybe. They ended abruptly near the woods because the ground got rocky there. No footprints. Nothing else. He asked if my dad ever had enemies or weird friends. That sounds ridiculous now, but at the time we were trying to force this into some logical shape. Maybe somebody connected to him had been using the house somehow. My dad was a contractor. Lots of people knew the property. Marcus installed 2 extra cameras that evening, one facing the attic hatch and one outside toward the backyard. He left around 9. I almost went to a hotel, honestly. I should have. But part of me was embarrassed by how scared I'd gotten over a stupid voicemail. So I stayed. Around midnight, the power blinked off for maybe 3 seconds, just enough to reset the microwave clock. Then I heard the sound again. Fingernails tapping glass. Tick, tick, tick. Very soft. Coming from upstairs, I froze on the couch listening to it. Tick, tick, scrape. Then silence. My first thought was raccoons or branches hitting windows. But there were no trees close enough upstairs. I grabbed my phone and checked the attic camera feed. The hatch was closed, nothing moving. Then the tapping happened again directly above me this time, from inside the ceiling. I actually felt the vibration through the drywall. That's what made me panic. I called Marcus while walking toward the front door, and as I was talking to him, the upstairs bathroom light turned on by itself. I could see it from the staircase. Bright yellow light spilling into the hall. Marcus told it, "Now I know what you do." Neither of us wanted to call the cops yet because what were we even reporting? Weird noises? A prank voicemail? But when we went back inside together, the bathroom light was off again, and the attic hatch was open. Wide open this time. Marcus went up first with a flashlight. I stayed below because screw that. I heard him moving around up there for maybe 30 seconds before he suddenly said, "Dude, come look at this." His voice sounded wrong. Tight. I climbed up and the first thing I saw was the recliner gone again. Just gone. The drag marks now led toward the far wall where insulation had been pulled away. Behind it was a narrow gap between the beams. Heading back there were 6 VHS tapes stacked neatly beside a portable TV. Dust covered but plugged into an extension cord running somewhere deeper into the attic. Marcus pulled one tape out. On the label, in my dad's handwriting, was my name. Just my name, and a date from 8 months earlier. My dad had been dead for years by then. We brought the TV down and watched one tape, because at that point curiosity overpowered common sense. The footage was grainy camcorder video of my living room at night. Recent footage. My furniture arrangement exactly as it currently was. The camera angle looked like it had been filmed from the upstairs hallway through the railing. Nothing happened for maybe 10 minutes except me asleep on the couch. Then at exactly 2:14 a.m., the timestamp matching the voicemail, the camera slowly zoomed toward me, while somebody breathed heavily behind it. "Marcus, sit down. Confidence. Confidence." I remember neither of us talking for several seconds. Then he asked quietly if I'd ever sleepwalked. Such a stupid question, but I think his brain was trying to survive the moment by finding anything normal to attach to it. We searched the attic again more carefully, and eventually found something else hidden behind insulation. An old sleeping bag, empty food wrappers, water bottles. Somebody had absolutely been living up there. Recently. That Should have made everything less scary, because suddenly there was a human explanation, but it actually made it worse. Because if somebody had been secretly living in my attic, that meant they'd been watching me for who knows how long. And somehow they had access to my dad's disconnected phone number. We finally called the police around 2 a.m. 2 officers came out, searched the property, took the tapes. They treated it seriously enough, especially after seeing signs somebody had been staying there. But no one was found. One officer asked if any valuables were missing. None were. Nothing stolen. That bothered him too. He said usually hidden squatters steal food, money, electronics. Whoever this was mostly just watched me. The next few days were tense but quiet. I stayed at a hotel while locks got changed and the attic sealed temporarily. Police traced the voicemail somehow and told me it came from an internet relay service, basically impossible to narrow down. The tapes disappeared into evidence and I never got them back. Marcus kept insisting it was probably some mentally ill person obsessed with my dad or me. Maybe they'd known our family years ago. Again, logical enough. Except for one thing, I never told the police because I knew how crazy it sounded. On the second tape, just before Marcus shut the TV off, there was a reflection visible in the dark window behind my couch. Very faint, an older man standing in the hallway, watching me sleep. Marcus thought it was just camera distortion, or maybe even my own reflection from the TV screen. But the figure was wearing my dad's green work jacket, the one he was buried in. A week later, I went back to the house during the day to start cleaning things up. I was trying hard to force my life back into normal. The attic had been emptied by police, new locks everywhere. I remember feeling stupid for still being nervous. Then I found the note, folded neatly on the kitchen counter. You should have listened. No signature. No fingerprints according to police later. Nothing. Just those 4 words written in shaky block letters. I sold the house 3 months after that. Cheap too. I couldn't stay there anymore. Last thing though, this is the part that still gets under my skin. About a year after moving, I got another voicemail from my dad's number. Just static at first, then breathing. Then very quietly, almost amused, he said, "You left the attic open." I knew something was wrong when the hotel phone rang and the voice on the other end asked why I was inside room 214, because I was standing outside in the parking lot when it happened. I just stared at the lobby windows for a second, trying to process what the guy at the front desk was saying. He sounded irritated at first, like I was causing a problem. He said housekeeping reported somebody moving around in my room after I'd already checked out. I told him I hadn't checked out yet, and I definitely wasn't upstairs. Then he went quiet for a second and asked me, "Sir, then who just answered your room phone?" I worked night maintenance at a distribution warehouse outside Tulsa back then, and that hotel was where the company stuck overflow contractors during a conveyor system upgrade. Nothing fancy, 3 floors, cheap carpet, weird smell in the hallways. Half the vending machines broken. I'd been there 4 nights already with no issues besides hearing footsteps above me constantly, even though the 3rd floor was supposedly closed for renovations. I never cared much. Old buildings make noise. But after that phone call, I walked back inside and the front desk guy immediately looked relieved when he saw me, like genuinely relieved. He kept glancing toward the elevators while printing something at the computer. Then he slid a fresh keycard across the desk and said, mine had somehow been used 10 minutes earlier to enter room 214. That didn't make sense because my key was in my pocket the entire time. I actually showed him. He compared the serial numbers and went pale, because according to the system, both keys were identical copies. Same timestamp, same encoding. He asked if anybody else had access to my room. No, I traveled alone, no girlfriend. No coworkers hanging around, nothing. He muttered something about the system glitching again, but his hands were shaking while he said it. I should explain one thing. I don't believe in paranormal stuff at all. I grew up with one of those families that blamed everything on demons. Sleep paralysis, demons. Missing socks, demons probably. So by the time I became an adult, I swung completely the opposite direction. Every weird thing has an explanation eventually. That's still what I think. Mostly. Anyway, the elevator wouldn't go above the second floor because of the renovations, so we took the stairs together. The front desk guy, his name was Colin, I think, kept talking too much the whole way up. Nervous people do that. He said room 214 had electrical issues for months. Phones calling random rooms, TVs turning on, keycards desyncing. Typical old building stuff. But then he accidentally said, "At least this time nobody saw her." Then he immediately stopped talking. I asked who her was, and he just unlocked my room without answering. The second I walked inside, something felt off. Not scary exactly, just wrong. My suitcase was on the bed unzipped. I always zipped it. The bathroom light was on too, and I knew I'd turned it off because I hate wasting electricity. Colin noticed the suitcase immediately and asked if I'd left it open earlier. I said no. He didn't answer, just stared toward the bathroom for maybe 2 seconds too long. Then we both heard it. A soft metallic clink from inside the bathroom, like someone setting down a piece of jewelry on the sink. Colin whispered, "Hello." No answer. He pushed the bathroom door open slowly. Empty, but the mirror above the sink had writing on it. Not dramatic movie-style blood writing or anything stupid like that. Just 4 words traced into the steam somehow. "You left her here." Colin backed out immediately. I actually laughed at first because honestly it looked fake, like somebody's prank. Except there wasn't any steam in the bathroom. The mirror was completely dry besides the writing itself. I wiped it with my hand and the letter smeared cold across the glass like grease. Colin told me he was getting the manager. I told him to wait, because now I was annoyed more than scared. Somebody obviously had access to staff keys. Somebody was screwing with guests. While Colin went downstairs, I checked the room myself. Closet empty, under the bed empty, windows locked. But when I checked the digital alarm clock beside the bed, the time flashed 2:14 repeatedly, instead of the actual time. Every few seconds it corrected itself, then blinked back to 2:14. I unplugged it. The numbers stayed on another full minute before finally dying. That bothered me a lot more than the mirror for some reason. Around 20 minutes later, the manager came up with Colin and another older maintenance guy named Ray. The second Ray saw the writing on the mirror, his entire expression changed. Not fear exactly. Recognition. He asked me if I'd heard crying through the vents at night. I said no because I hadn't. Then he looked confused and said, "Usually that's the first thing." The manager snapped at him to stop talking. They ended up moving me to room 119 downstairs near the lobby. I remember thinking the whole situation was ridiculous. Some creepy employee probably using master keys to mess with people. But then Ray quietly stopped me while I was carrying my bags downstairs and said if I heard knocking after 2 a.m., don't answer the door no matter what voice I heard outside. I asked him if he was joking. He said no, completely serious. Then he walked off before I could ask anything else. I barely slept that night because now every little sound had my attention. Ice machine humming, pipes ticking, people talking outside. Around 1:40 a.m. I finally started drifting off when the room phone rang once. Just once, then stopped. I checked the caller ID. Room 214. I stared at it for a solid minute. Then I called the front desk from my cell phone instead of the room phone because suddenly I didn't want to touch it. Different employee this time. Woman named Denise. I asked if someone was in 214. Silence. Then she said that room was locked for maintenance and had been empty for weeks. I told her somebody literally moved my belongings in there earlier. Another silence. Then she asked me, who moved me into 214 originally? I told her Colin checked me in on Monday. She said there was no employee named Colin on staff. I actually got angry then because it sounded like everyone was messing with me together. I went straight downstairs to the lobby. Denise was alone behind the desk. Young woman, tired eyes. I asked where Colin was. She looked genuinely confused and pulled up employee records on the computer. No Colin, no recent hires even close to that name. Then she checked the security cameras from earlier that evening. You could see me clearly at the front desk talking to somebody, but on the footage, the space behind the counter where Colin should have been looked empty, not blurred, empty. Like I was standing there talking to myself. Denise replayed it 3 times. I remember feeling cold all over watching it because my body language clearly showed a conversation happening. I nodded, waited for responses, followed someone toward the stairwell, but visually there was nobody there. Denise whispered, "Oh my God," under her breath, and immediately called the manager at home. While she was on the phone, I noticed something else on the monitor. At exactly 2:14 a.m., every hallway camera on the second floor flickered static simultaneously for about 4 seconds, then returned. Denise saw it too. She looked like she might cry, honestly. The manager arrived maybe 30 minutes later wearing sweatpants and looking furious, until Denise showed him the footage. His whole attitude changed after that. He took me into the back office and finally explained why room 214 had been shut down. About 8 months earlier, a woman staying there disappeared overnight during a business trip. No signs of struggle, her belongings still inside. Hotel cameras showed her entering the room around midnight but never leaving. Police investigated for weeks. Nothing. The weird part was her husband kept insisting she'd called him around 2:14 a.m., sounding confused, whispering that someone else was inside the room pretending to be her. After that story spread online, guests started reporting strange calls from 214, random knocks, seeing a woman standing near the ice machine, typical urban legend stuff probably amplified by social media. The manager clearly didn't believe any supernatural angle either, but he admitted business got bad enough that they closed the floor temporarily. I asked why they reopened it for me then. He looked confused and checked the booking records. According to the system, nobody had assigned me to 214. My original reservation showed room 119 from the beginning. There was no record of a room change at all. At this point, I should have just left the hotel. But something about the manager's reaction made me stay, because now he looked just as lost as I felt. Around 3 a.m., we all went upstairs together. Me, the manager, Denise, and Ray, the maintenance guy. The hallway smelled strange that night, like wet carpet and perfume underneath it. Room 214 sat at the far end near the ice machine. The manager unlocked it with a master key, and this time the room looked completely untouched. Bed made perfectly, no suitcase obviously because my stuff was downstairs now. Bathroom dry, mirror clean. But Ray immediately pointed toward the carpet near the window. Wet footprints, bare feet, small ones, leading from the bathroom halfway across the room before disappearing completely. Denise refused to come farther inside after seeing them. The manager crouched down touching the carpet and muttered that it was ice water, probably from housekeeping, except the footprints were worn. I know how stupid that sounds, but when I touched one myself, the carpet felt heated, almost body temperature. Then the room phone rang, loud enough to make all of us jump. Nobody moved for a second. The display read, "Front desk." Denise quietly said the lobby was empty because she'd left nobody downstairs. The manager answered anyway. I could hear static through the receiver from across the room. Then a woman speaking very softly, not distressed, calm. She kept repeating, "He's still here." The manager asked who was there. The voice said, "The man in your hallway." Then the line disconnected. Ray immediately walked to the door and looked both directions down the hall, empty at first. Then the elevator dinged. All of us turned. The elevator doors opened slowly, even though the second floor elevator access had supposedly been disabled. Nobody came out, but there was a luggage cart inside, old brass kind, and sitting on it was my suitcase. The same suitcase currently downstairs in room 119. I actually felt my stomach flip when I saw it because I recognized the broken handle immediately. Denise started crying right there. Ray swore under his breath and pushed the elevator button repeatedly like he wanted the doors closed again. The manager asked if this was some kind of prank from staff, but nobody answered him. We rolled the luggage cart into 214 carefully. My suitcase was zipped shut now. There was something tight around the handle too. A hotel key card attached with a rubber band. Room 214. Time 2:14 a.m. The manager opened the suitcase while I stood back. My clothes were inside exactly how I packed them, except for one thing. Folded on top was a floral print nightgown. Not mine, obviously. Yellowed with age, damp around the sleeves. Denise whispered that it matched what the missing woman was wearing in her check-in photo. The manager snapped at everyone to leave the room immediately. We did, fast. While walking back toward the stairs, I noticed one of the hallway doors standing slightly open. 218 maybe. I'm not sure now. But I remember seeing darkness inside the crack and hearing the television on low volume. Old sitcom laughter. Ray saw it too, and quietly said, "Nobody was staying on this floor." Then the door slowly clicked shut by itself. No slam, just a soft latch. The manager decided to call police again after that, mostly because of the suitcase somehow moving floors without explanation. We waited downstairs near the lobby until officers arrived. While waiting, Denise checked one last camera angle from the second floor. I wish I hadn't seen it, honestly. At 2:14 a.m. exactly, during the static flicker, a figure appeared briefly outside room 214. A woman, maybe. Hard to tell through the distortion, but standing directly behind her was a tall man in a maintenance uniform, face impossible to make out. The strange part was Ray recognized the uniform immediately. He said the patch belonged to an employee named Walter, who died in the hotel boiler room almost 15 years earlier. Everybody went quiet after that. Nobody said ghost, nobody even implied it, but Ray looked sick. Police searched the building until sunrise. Found nothing, no intruder, no explanation for the footage. They took the nightgown and keycard as evidence. I left before noon and drove 3 hours home without sleeping. Couple days later, the hotel manager called me personally and asked me not to discuss the incident online because they were dealing with enough rumors already. I agreed, mostly because I didn't even know how to explain any of it. Here's the thing though. About 6 months later, I was working another overnight shift at the warehouse when one of the conveyor alarms jammed around 2 a.m. I climbed up to clear a stuck package and noticed the shipping label had partially torn open. The destination address was that hotel. Same one, same room number, 214. I don't know why, but I opened the box. Inside was an old rotary hotel phone wrapped in bubble wrap. And taped to the receiver was a sticky note with my full name written on it in black ink. And underneath it, somebody had written, "She said you forgot to answer."